Hi, and welcome to the 64 Doors. We are now about halfway through the transits in the Rave Mandala, and this means that we're going to start going into the programming partners of the archetypes that we've already been seeing this year. And today we're going to open door 53, and this is an archetype that is all about new beginnings and expansion. We're going to look at the archetype from a human design perspective and a gene key perspective. So here we have the Rave Mandala, and we see that the sun is right now in Cancer in gate 53, and the Earth is in Capricorn in gate 54. So here we were in the beginning of the year, and now we've gone through all these archetypes, and we found ourselves in the 53. And the design part of the cross is the 51 in Aries and the 57 in Libra. And this is 3 months back in time. So if somebody's born today in Cancer, 3 months back, that's when we say the soul incarnated, and that becomes the soul imprint or the design imprint. And this creates the incarnation cross, which is the activation sequence in the gene keys. And we say, together with the profile, this is making up 70% of who we are. And the profile also includes the line of each of these activations. So depending on what day you were born in transit 51, or actually what day you were born in transit 53, your personality, you're going to have that line. So if you were born in line 2, for example, you're going to have a 0.2. And then that is also going to be the calculation for what line your design Earth was in. And these are always going to be 2 different, because instead of having 90 degrees here in the angles, we have 88. So that's why we have a different personality line and a different design line, or a different line in our life's work to the line that we have in our purpose sphere. So if we would look at the cross that is activated right now, we have the 53 and the 54 together with the 51 and the 57 we were just seeing. And this is called the right angle cross of penetration. So the beginnings, the expansion, the ambition, we have the achiever, that's the archetype of the 54, and then combined with the initiative of the 51 and the clarity and intuition of the 57. So this is a very powerful cross. That's why we're calling it the cross of penetration. And then the other 2 crosses are having a different design activation. So here we have the 42 and the 32. And the 42 is all about endings. And knowing that the 53 is all about the beginnings, this is much more cyclic. We're seeing somebody who has both that energy of beginning and the energy of ending. So it's a life kind of going in cycles. And the 32 also has to do with knowing what's worth preserving, knowing what plants in the garden we want to water. It's a little different kind of cross than the cross of penetration. So if you have your life's work or your personality sun, that is the 53, I would definitely go in here and learn more about the cross. You could also go to the Gene Keys website and make your profile, and then you're going to have a 1-pager with a few paragraphs on each of the Gene Keys, on each of these 4s that are your main ones that are making up 70% of who we are. And some of the keywords, endeavors and fuel. So here we have the fuel to start something, that even the restlessness that you need to start something, it's a pressure. If we go back to the body graph, we see that this is a gate that is coming out from the root, and it's meeting the 42 in the sacral. And this is the channel of maturation, a design of balanced development. The 53, the reference theme is people under constant pressure to begin something new. And I know somebody had, I don't think it was in the incarnation cross, but who had it like prominent in his chart, and it was this kind of restlessness, and it was a 3-5-2, so a lot of new starts and kind of cutting then when it was boring, and not really allowing. When you don't have the 42, sometimes you're just starting, but you don't really have that energy to end. And that's why I would say for the channel of maturation, it is the channel where I feel like it's a little bit more challenging than with other channels when you don't have both gates, when you don't have the whole channel. Because if with a 53, you have this pressure to begin something, and the 42 has this pressure to end something. So it can be, yeah, it can be a little bit hard when you don't have both, or you might look for the other end in different ways. I actually like the way that we speak about this channel in Integral Human Design. So we call it a channel of evolution and maturation. And the lowest frequency is attachment. So it's not really being able to begin something or end something. It's that attachment, holding. And then in the pathway, in the higher frequency, it's about evolution. And the really high frequency is eternity, because everything existence is made up of cycles, right? So when we have the beginning and the ending, it's just forever beginning and ending. I feel like that's beautiful. And then speaking gene key language now, we are going to see that it's a little bit different than when we speak about the gates in human design. We don't have the body graph, so we don't see like how the energy moves in the body or with us or somebody else, but we do see a frequency band where the lower frequency is contracted and in fear, and then the higher frequencies are more expansive and more in a love vibration. And it's not that the low frequency is wrong and the high frequency is right. It's like it's just a band, and we move as human beings on that whole range from the lowest to the highest, from the most contracted to the most expansive. And it's really also connected to what's on the other side of the rave mandala. So we were looking at that position in the beginning, having those crosses with the 54 and the 53. So the immaturity of the 53 is connected to the greed of the 54. And what I see here in the low frequency is a lot believing in 3D structures, and not having the inner knowing that expansion is possible, that evolution is possible, that new ways are possible, but kind of believing that the way we've done it in 3D is the way that's always going to work. The way that we created wealth before is the way it's going to work. And a kind of self-centered, like you see, greed, it's really a self-centered, I have to do this, I have to elbow myself through because that's the way it works, and not being able to open up, to expand to the new ways and to the evolution of things. And you see, expansion and aspiration are the higher frequencies that come together, and then ascension and superabundance. And we are also going into global cycles in Unlocker Design now with a membership, and we're speaking about the 55 and the 54 that are the main keys when we go into 2027, when we look at what is unlocking where we're going. So that's a whole system in itself, but really ascension and freedom, 55 and 54, are super important keys to where we're going. In the I-Ching, we speak about gradual development, and supple wood grows on stable foundation, deep roots create nourishing fruits. So you see here that we still have the basis of the mountain. So 2 weeks ago, we were in 52, mountain over mountain. And now we still have that, but over it, we have the wind. And if we click on it, you see that these are the keywords for the 57, and these are the keywords for the 52. So mountain and wind. And superabundance is the clarity of stillness, super beautiful. Expansion is intuitive restraint, and immaturity is uneasy stress. And when it comes to astrology, we're still in Cancer, so service to other through the caring waters of unconditional love. It's about communion, it's about nurturing, it's about bringing life. I would also say that the codon ring is something, looking at the transits again, that it's very activated, that whole codon ring. So if we look at, we have been 15, 52, 39, 53. So looking at the codon ring of seeking, we have 52, 53, 15, 39. We have those after each other, and it is root pressure. We have, if we look at the body graph, we're going to see that all of them except the 15 are in the root center. So we have that root pressure, that kind of fuel. So it says this codon ring is the great pressure codon inside human DNA. Each of the 6 gene keys within this group drives an aspect of human evolutionary movement. In the shadow frequency, this pressure creates stress and fear. In the higher frequencies, this pressure generates creativity and aspiration to rise up to a greater spiritual awakening. So knowing that that's what's activated for the collective, and we go through several transits after each other. And for the dream arc, I will go into Jane Addams' blog, and she's painting every transit. Serpent, rabbit, stork is this transit. The mudra is a right-brained way, a receptive way of taking in the frequency of the gene key, of the city of the gene key, that Richard has a library that you can buy. So for me, this week is a lot about feeling into your beliefs, and especially the false beliefs that you can't do this or you can't do that, or it's going to be hard, or you have to do it the old way. So really looking into new ways of expanding, new ways of aspiring to something. I would also say it also has to do with these things that, like I said, about the third line. If you're a 3-5 and you have the 53, you can easily be bored with something, and then you start something new. So look at that. And sometimes maybe it is better to kind of allow the cycle to end. We see that sometimes in relationships, when we get bored and we just want to cut it. And then in the next relationship, we have to go through the same thing. So there is something beautiful with inviting that 42, even if you might not have it, inviting that 42 that feels when things are naturally ending, so that you don't just start and start and start, but actually can feel the whole cycles. And then you are tapping into what we're seeing in the integral human design, that feeling of eternity, just seeing life and existence as beginning and ending cycles. And also the 53, since it is about expansion, you might want to look if you did outgrow a part of your life, maybe a relationship, maybe your job, maybe your house, and see what are you ready, what abundance are you ready to invite in? What are the things that you can leave behind you? And then it can also be beautiful to be, because we all have that root pressure is a bit scary. So often we have some resistance or some fear for expansion. And was Marianne Williamson who said, we are more afraid of how big we are and not how small we are. So it's also a week to tap into that super abundance and ask, like, if I wasn't afraid of anything, like, where, what would I expand to? What would I do? So powerful week in this transit. I feel like also with a 39 last week that you got a little bit of that dynamism that can come in and help that start of something new in the 53. So wishing you all a beautiful week, and I'll see you next transit.